Seattle News Weekly from Fox 13.
Welcome to Seattle News Weekly. I'm Bill Wixey, along with Chief Meteorologist Brian MacMillan. And as it gets colder outside, we start to think about winter, or at least I do, because I'm excited to get up and do some skiing up in the mountains this winter. And us skiers, we talk a lot about La Niña or El Niño winters. And
right.
I was looking at the latest forecast. That's why I wanted to bring you on the podcast, is because what I was seeing, the latest forecast that I saw was a 71% chance of a La Niña winter. But before we get into all that, just tell us what causes La Niña winters versus El Niño.
Okay, so we look at something called Enzo, okay? And La Niña is a part of just kind of normal, natural cycle of the climate between in the Eastern Pacific here. So we're talking ocean temperatures in the water. And when that temperature is a little bit below average, it can get as much as 3 degrees below average, that is when we call it a La Niña. When it is warmer than average, okay, and that can get up to, 0 to 3 degrees above average, that's when it's called El Niño, and that is in the Eastern Pacific there in the tropics, okay? We look at something called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, and that is called ENZO for short. Okay, and that is what we kind of look at. So ENZO neutral would mean that it's right at average. The ocean water temperature is right at average.
Okay.
If it's La Niña, then it means it's cooler than average. If it's El Niño, it's warmer than average. So let me show you something here. This little graphic I put together. Okay, this kind of just. This explains the pattern, okay? What we would typically see during what would be a La Niña winter. That's kind of what we're heading for, because you talked about it a little bit there, Bill. We are headed toward a La Niña winter. Okay.
And what's the probability that we're going to see La Niña as opposed to El Niño? Because last year it was an El Niño, correct?
Yeah, so La Niña conditions are currently present. So we're just slightly above average in regards to our temperature, about half a degree right now. Above average, and they use buoys, they use other methods of satellite images. They look at the sea surface temperature and kind of average things out. They do it over a period of a month, and then they kind of determine which direction we're headed. And these temperatures are really impacted by trade winds. Okay, stronger the trade winds kind of mixes up that cooler. The cooler water down below brings it up to the surface, so that's when we get our cooler than average temperatures. Now, in a La Niña pattern, typically we see ridging well offshore over the ocean, and you can see where the jet stream really pointed at the Pacific Northwest. So what this does for us is it brings us typically wetter and cooler winters up here to western Washington, and then you typically see warmer and drier conditions down to the south when you work your way towards Phoenix, Arizona, New Mexico, even down into Texas and California. So this is good news if you're a skier or a snowboarder, right?
I mean, this would be the year to buy the season's pass, potentially?
Yeah, well, yes. I think it looks like it's going to be a weak La Niña, so if it's a strong La Niña, okay, which means those temperatures are much cooler than average, then we have a much better chance at seeing some more impactful snow. So it's not a guarantee, but, I think if you hedged your bets, this will likely be a better year than a worse year, which we've seen in some of these El Niño winters, which some of our ski resorts, dread, because it can really have a huge impact.
And we've seen winters like that too. But when we talk about this winter, and we're talking about the Highlands, right?
Yes.
I mean, the amount of snow that we're going to see, but we've also seen La Niña winters where we get a lot of lowland snow. So do we have any idea on the probability of lowland snow this year?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this other graphic here that I put together. And actually, I'm going to need to bring it up here once again. So just give me one quick second. I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right. So let's see here. I looked at the past 10 La Niña winters. Last year was one of them. Now, the odds of seeing at least some lowland snow are there, okay? No guarantees for a snowy winter when it comes to La Niña winters down here in the Puget Sound lowlands, because a lot has to come together. But these are our last 10. Okay, that's pretty good, right? We got at least something over the past 10 La Niña winters, and I would say about half of the time we got some big-time snow. I'm talking over 10 inches. So that was back in 2020. That was back in 2016, 2017, the winter of 2011 and 2012. And then we had almost 2 feet of snow back in 2008, 2009, if you remember that. Last year, we didn't get a heck of a lot here. That should say 2024 to 2025 again. I just put it together, but we only had a couple of inches there. So that was our weakest one over the past 10. But yes, it does increase our chances a bit. Typically, we do always see at least a little bit of something here in the Seattle area during a La Nina winter, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be big snow where we're going to be, locked down for days.
Okay, so when you say it's going to be a mild La Nina, does that
a
mean
weak La Nina?
It's a weak La Nina? So it's going to be a shorter duration?
Not necessarily. It just means that the impacts to the Pacific Northwest and our weather is not necessarily going to be as strong as it would be during a strong El Nino or La Nina.
So how long can we expect these La Nina conditions to persist during the winter?
Okay, so right now, this is a report that came out on October 9th. This is before the government shutdown, by the way. The Climate Prediction Center, along with the National Weather Service, are also under
They're
this.
affected by the federal shutdown.
Yes, but they're essential services, so they're still operating. There's people still working there, but some of the things that they do some of the reports may not necessarily come out. We'll see if this one does in early November as they take a look at things again. But they said La Nina conditions are present and favored to persist through February, basically the entire winter, and then it'll transition over to neutral in January through March. And there's about a 50-50 chance of that. So either La Nina will extend a little bit longer or we get back to neutral, which could potentially mean maybe not as much late season snow. But when we're talking about our higher resorts, I think those are going to be just fine. When you look at, Stevens Pass and you look at some of the ones that are 4,000 feet or higher, you're looking okay.
And so does this impact wildfire season at all?
Yeah, I think it very well could. I mean, if you have less snowpack in the mountains or if you're seeing a drier spring overall, that can definitely impact our summer wildfire season. So we like to see there's some talk out there that spring rain can actually make plants grow a little bit more and make things a little bit worse. But I would say that overall we want the rain, right? We want a wet spring. We want a good snowpack, because that inevitably will help things out in regards to our fire season.
And helps our gardens grow.
And it absolutely does.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Brian MacMillan, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
It was
Hopefully
great to
that
have
all
you.
made sense. It's one of these things that's a little more on the complicated side, but the bottom line is we're all in tune with it here,
Sure.
In other parts of the country, they may not think about La Nina and El Nino as much.
It affects us more here.
It does.
On the West Coast.
Yeah, it really affects the weather across the country, but especially us up here in the Pacific Northwest, and especially those of you who really like your winter sports. You want a La Nina winter.
And I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Brian, thanks. And don't forget, new episodes of the Seattle News Weekly podcast come out every Thursday, and you can watch them on the Fox Local app, fox13seattle.com, or the Fox 13 Seattle YouTube channel. And you can also listen anywhere you get your podcasts. We will see you again right here next week.
Seattle News Weekly is available wherever you get your podcast.